In May 2009, Simon Weaver walked into Harrogate Town Football Club Stadium for the first time. Back then he was still a player, and his appointment as the club's player-manager was his first venture into a leadership role. 10 years later, Simon is still in charge, having taken his team into the Vanarama National League and into last season's playoffs alongside some very established clubs and against expectations. His cerebral, measured approach has won him the respect of many in the game. I met Simon recently at the CNG Stadium to talk about his journey to date, his leadership style, and the challenges and benefits of working for a chairman who also happens to be your dad. Full disclosure, I'm a Harrogate Town season ticket holder. Let's start with your background as a player. Just talk us through that kind of history of where you were, what happened to you, how you got to Sheffield Wednesday, and then throughout that rest of your non-league career, Simon.
Well, I played junior football in the Sheffield League and got picked up by a scout to go to the Centre of Excellence at Sheffield Wednesday, which was a Thursday evening for 1 hour. And that's when the pressure ramped up and the technique and really improved me as a player. So from 11 to 16 I was there, and when I was 15 and 16 it's also had a games programme against other professional teams, and so it was ramping up, and then the acid tests, you have to perform and improve enough to get to warrant an apprenticeship. So I got that 2 years apprenticeship, and then at the end of my second year I was awarded a professional contract. Then after the first year pro I was awarded another contract, another year. Right. And in the meantime I went out on loan to Doncaster, which was good experience, and I stood up to the task. I came back, Bournemouth were interested, I went down to sign there 3.5 years.
You played for Bournemouth 3.5 years, did you?
No, I was offered it.
Oh, okay.
And then David Pleat, right at the last hour driving down to Bournemouth, Mel Machin was the manager.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, hang on, he's pulled out of it, David Pleat."
Has he?
So I had to drive back home. Parents were surprised to see me at tea time, there and back. And the deal was dead. And David Pleat said, "I'll give you another year." And so I was just on an extended year instead of 3 there, on 25 quid a week more, and that was it. Yeah. So then he got sacked though a few months later, just so I was knocking on the door. I got released. Was badly advised, got a bad agent, and who messed up a move to Rotherham United, and then I was in non-league, and took me 3 years to get out of that National League equivalent conference, and the one below. Got a move to Lincoln City through my Ilkeston manager who took me after Sheffield Wednesday, and I had my best spell there. 23 to 26. I had a great spell with Keith Alexander.
And what age were you when you moved from just playing to, well, we'll talk about coming to Harrogate. What age were you when you kind of packed it in?
31.
Right.
31 because I was player manager here.
Yeah.
There was far too much to do. And it stopped me training a lot.
Yeah.
And then I thought I had to lead by example on the pitch, and when I couldn't do that, and I was here, there and everywhere, I needed to focus in on my next stage.
Let's come back to that in a minute if we can. You've mentioned a few names that you were managed by or coached by. In those early days, did you have aspirations to sort of post-playing career to be a coach or to be a manager? And if you did, were you looking at people and taking good and bad lessons?
Oh, 100%, yeah. I think from an early age, I was managing, captaining inter-house teams, and I'd pick my own team for who we should be, tactically. And they were a lot more basic in those days, but always looked at managers and thought, I like that idea, or I'm not sure about that. And but there were a lot of bad experiences.
Yeah,
which
you
I thought
can learn from those as well, can't you?
Yeah.
So did that thought of having a career staying in football still crystallise whilst you were a footballer? Did you? Yeah. And how did you plan for that then, or didn't you?
It was probably from. I remember coming out of, I was on loan at Macclesfield,
Yeah.
and I came out of the ground, and I was talking about Brian Horton, who
Yeah.
racked up 1,000 games, and I was on the phone to my brother, and he said, right out of the blue, he said, you know what, you'll be a better manager than player.
Right.
Follow it. And I just probably needed that pep talk at the time.
Yeah.
And I went and did my badges, my coaching badges, so I had the qualifications, level 2, UEFA B, UEFA A, and I got through them, and I thought, right, the opportunity arose with Harrogate, and I saw it. I scored the winning goal to sort of finish my career. I went back to Ilkeston after a couple of leg breaks, and I woke up after scoring this winning goal to get promoted. I saw in the non-league paper an advertisement for to apply for the job here.
Let's stay with that then. What was that, May 2009, something like that?
Yeah, 2009. Yeah.
When you walked in, what did you find?
Well, the interview and getting the job took place at Mr. Fotherby's house.
Oh, was it still?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
But after he basically
Was he
offered
keeping
me-
you away from the ground?
Probably. But after, I thought, I'm going to go up to the ground.
Yeah.
And I jumped over the doctor's car park fence and had a look. And I thought, it's a bit bedraggled, he's struggling a bit. And I remember being excited, but thinking,
Cautious.
yeah, there's a bit of apprehension there because you can be in and out, can't you?
What swung it then? What made you say, yeah, this is right?
Well, I said I'd confirm after speaking to Sally. I said I run everything by my partner, Sally, and we weren't married at the time. But I said he's basically given me the job, but I've got to go back to him. She said, "What do you think?" I said, "Looking at the ground, it's tough. I might be in and out here. I'm going to sleep on it. I always sleep on things." And then at 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up. I was like, I'm taking it. I'm going to have a go. And I was sort of wired then, thinking, right, what now?
Well, it's notoriously difficult, I think, and well documented to be a player and a manager. And you've already alluded to the fact that you can get stretched that way.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to think, I can't continue as a player and I just need to focus on...
10 games.
Did it?
Yeah.
Right.
And we played in the FA Cup and played at a team, the league below at the time, Bradford Park Avenue. We were 3-0 down at half time. I caused the last goal by trying to keep the ball in play to get the ball up the field and to come back. And we had a weakened team. We had players playing for free, some positions, just miles off it.
Right.
Begston and Bourne players, and I just thought, I'm not had to sit down for ages, and it's half time and we get knocked out of the FA Cup. I thought, hang on a minute, if you're serious about being a manager, you'll be out without having a real go.
Well, you'll neither be one nor the other.
No, and that's what I was.
And of course, you finished bottom that first year, and I think Northwich Vicks had some financial problems.
Yeah,
didn't they?
so we had
So
a reprieve.
they didn't come up, so you got a reprieve.
Yeah, I was on holiday, and the managing director at the time rang me and said, we've got a reprieve. I thought, right, now let's go to work. And we had a bit more of a competitive budget the second year, but still for that level, it's pretty tough.
And then you finished, mid-table?
Yeah, finished 11th, yeah. So it was an improvement.
So, moving this kind of towards where I wanted to go, which is to talk about leadership a little bit more. When you arrived and you saw what you saw, what did you think were the priorities?
What were the first few days?
First few days, weeks, months.
Well,
what
obviously,
did you see
you're nothing without players.
Okay.
I mean, facilities, I thought, okay, that's another...
That is what it is.
Yeah. And you just got to get on with what you can control. And I asked how many players were in the staff, and they said 2 have been re-engaged, so they're under 24, offered terms. And basically, I rang them up. They've been offered terms at Halifax, better terms, better club going forward. And the second one put the phone down on me. He just said, no, I'm not even meeting you. I'll always remember, because later on he wanted to come
back.
Yeah, but I don't hold a grudge. It was just we were in a mess at the time, so it meant that I had no players coming into pre-season apart from trialists. which was tough. So I had 50 there in the first session, and they were coming up in minibuses and everything, just from people I knew, just we need a team here. And so I put the session on and divided them up into groups, but then was trying to drill down on the best of that. And then we got to the first game of the season and got walloped 3 or 4-0 at Corby, and I thought they're men compared to us. Won the second game, but then after that we just weren't good enough. We kept it tight in most of the time, but it was just a baptism of fire.
So getting hold of the right players, in the right positions, critical. But when did you feel, or how long did it take you to feel like you were leading this group of players, other than you've just recruited those? Do you know what I mean? There's a difference, between putting a team on the pitch but feeling actually confident enough to be
confident, rather
charge of them.
Yeah, because it was difficult early on to feel, right, this is me.
This is your team.
I think I've learnt a lot over the years from actually just strip it down and what are you as a person.
Yeah.
And I think in the early days I thought I was aware I was 31.
Yeah.
And I was young.
So you were self-doubting a little bit because of
that? Well, there was. I remember, what do I wear for a game? Do I go smart?
Yeah.
Do I go Jackie? Do I go collar up? And you think, come on, and I was probably aware that we were bottom of the league. I'd just finished playing, and you're there to be shot at.
Yeah.
And you're vulnerable.
And the tendency is to overthink it.
Yeah. And so I don't know the exact moment, but then through time, you think you just become you.
Looking back at where you were to where you are now, in terms of your role as the leader of the team, the club, do you feel like you've got a particular style, or what is it, if you had to say this characterises the way in which I lead that group of players or this support staff?
I think it's that people get a sense of me being fair, but I've got strong values. Okay. And I live and die by them. So, and I don't waver from that. I know I'm consistent with it, because you trip yourself up if you're not. But then, if you're trying to be consistently someone else, you will trip up. So I am me, whether it's at home or here. Obviously, I will light up inside me when we set our stall out early, just as I will on Monday for the new players. I expect these standards of behaviour before we get into the football, and disciplines. So that sounds quite autocratic, but in terms of values, yes. Yeah. But then, right, we're here as a small, knit, tight group, and I want you to enjoy it. So at no point will I sulk 2 days after a game when they've had the day off and come in, and neither will any of my staff. So I expect to pass on, a bit of freedom. To members of staff to, right, no, you're here, like to Paul Thirlwell, to do a session. You do that session, I'm not going to look over you what you're doing. No,
you give people the autonomy.
Yeah.
You touched on values there. What are those values? You mentioned things like timekeeping.
Well, they're disciplines about being punctual, because it stops the sloppiness creeping in. And I think with young and old, but we're predominantly dealing with young men, they can cut corners.
Yeah.
And even the good ones can, I'm 5 minute drift to walk in. Yeah. And it's back to when I was 11, I'm going to coach, you're not a minute late. And it sets standards. If you do that, it drifts into the football. And the training's very strict at times in terms of, right, we want this high standards. And we will point the finger when people go, lazy on it.
And do you find that the groups start to self-police themselves?
Yeah, they know, and they'll get judged, and what they've got to understand, and they do now, because we've got a good leader with Josh Falkenham. Yeah. We say, well, you've got to be able to self-manage as well now, and understand that this is what we expect. So when a new player walks in, they know what to expect, and then already, hopefully within the first week, they go, actually, he did say that, and they're delivering it. Yeah. Into the strictness of discipline, but the sound, and no one's aloof, no one's blanking anyone. It's polite, but it's steely, and we do this hopefully to get winning behaviours, but also because you tend to do better when you're enjoying something.
How do you ensure that those kind of responses from players are consistent from the players who aren't necessarily always playing? Because it's much easier, isn't it,
Oh,
to adopt those positive behaviours
when
when
you're
you're in
the
the
man.
team and the manager loves you.
yeah. Again, I think it goes back to being upfront, transparent, honest.
Yeah.
So I'll be exhaustive with players who aren't in the team coming in and explaining,
Yeah.
and give them something to chew on and improve. So that's the biggest growth point, really. That's the massive opportunity to show their true character when they're not in the limelight or grabbing the headlines,
Yeah.
and they're not getting an ego massage.
Yeah.
It's raining outside. We start in half an hour. Are you there with the therabands doing your pre-op work?
I'm probably not playing this Saturday, but I've
Probably
still got to go
Yeah.
and put the work in.
And you get some phenomenal characters now, because I think actually you bought into the fact that if this badge is getting headlines at the end of the season, we're all up there, we're all happy, and I think giving people longer contracts back in the recruitment has made people have that sense of belonging and buying a little bit and understanding of that, because with football, you're trapped in a passion when you're not doing well, and it's a bit of a love-hate, and suddenly I'm probably that hate figure.
Well, you're
if I'm
tired,
not
aren't
giving you, your family's due up there at the motorway watching,
Absolutely.
and then I've just pulled you and said, you're not playing. We tried to tell them the day before, normally, so they can prepare all that, and all that noise in their heads has just been eradicated. But back to just being fair up front, but grown up about it, not burying your head in the sand.
So that strikes me as being largely about adopting a very authentic style of leadership. And one thing I'm very sort of comforted by when I see your post-match interviews is you're immediately available
Yeah,
to do those interviews regardless of what's happened.
yeah.
And is that an important thing?
Oh, I think
for
you've got
you
to face
do?
up to whatever.
Right.
It's easy to do it. You win 4-5-0.
Yeah.
And fantastic.
Yeah. Putting it in front of the camera.
And it's important not to. I don't like saying, "Oh, my team." I hear those kind of comments and I cringe a bit, because
Yeah, yeah.
you're basically saying that's because of me.
I'm responsible for that.
Where they do all the hard work on the bit, they're under pressure. Hopefully we've guided them and helped them and put something together that is good and fizzes and it's got good chemistry. But I think equally when you lose, that's when you definitely do turn up and face the music, because you're getting judged as a man, not just as a manager.
And also in that moment, what you're joining in with is owning up to your mistakes. Because if you can't own up to your mistakes as the leader, how can you encourage that kind of attitude from your players? Because you actually want them, presumably, to be in a state of mind where they're prepared to risk making a
exactly.
mistake.
And I mean, they didn't used to do interviews straight after and then it's on social media when I was playing. It didn't exist. But probably some of the players will look at the interview and go, did he mention me? And I always think, well, if you're watching that and I've gone, I didn't put him on at the right time, I got the wrong, or I was unfair on that, I misread it and changed the system, then at least they might find it easier, like you say, to come in and go, I'll hold my hand up, I wasn't covering around at that point, or I didn't track back. And you can move on quicker.
And I think some people adopt the attitude that if I own up to a mistake, it's seen as weakness.
Yeah.
And I think it's exactly the opposite of that.
100%. I think I was brought up in that kind of culture at the clubs I was at.
Yeah.
You just stay quiet.
Yeah.
If you're mentally not in a good place, confidence-wise, self-esteem, 100% would never own up to that.
Yeah. Who doesn't make a mistake on the pitch, and who
I know.
doesn't make a mistake off of it?
Yeah. I just think it's healthier when things are nipped in the bud, or when people just do confront that and go, I'm feeling rubbish. And I've had a couple of brilliant moments with players. Warren Burrell, mind me saying, he didn't pick up in a big game and scored. Someone towered above him, didn't really challenge. I said, what happened then? As all I said, what happened then? What's your take on it? And he said, to be honest, it was rubbish from me. I wasn't strong enough, didn't do it right. We've been working on it. I've got to be better. And I said, right, you'll do for me. We'll be fine, let's get on with it. Because
you as a leader, what presumably you're trying to generate is a whole team of leaders, aren't you?
Yeah.
That's the job, isn't it?
Well, yes, and we've had a couple of we've had a lot of hard spells, but we've had a couple of spells where I'm thinking it is a bit. I mean, I read it once in a management book about frying. You know, you're doing all right when it's like frying small fish, where it's just gentle.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be in the faces.
No, quite.
You just got good people around doing an honest job.
Yeah.
And they're buzzing off each other.
Yeah.
And little teams within teams.
So by the time they step out on the pitch, to some extent, your job largely is to some extent done. And I played at a not very good level, but I always remember thinking that guy shouting at me on the line is not really it's not affecting me in a positive way, particularly. No. So there's a mistake there, isn't there?
Yeah, I had to address that, because you can be stood there and you don't think about what people's perception are at the time, but there were probably moments where I'm thinking they've got to see me animated, but when the lads are flying in training, I'm stood there.
Yeah.
With a whistle, I'm just letting them get on with it.
Yeah, quite.
And then we'll have a chat after. And so I've probably gone more towards that, because you don't want people going, what did he say?
Yeah, it's mixed messages.
Suddenly, there's too much noise in the head again.
In terms of noise in the head, if you want to be really effective doing the job that you do, I think under the pressure that you're often under, it's important to practice self-care, to look after yourself, to look after your physical health, to look after your mental health. Do you get time to self-reflect, and do you get time to look after yourself?
I think I made a promise to myself to go 100% football career, drive it on, 100% family, 2 young kids and a wife, and when I've not got the balance right, I feel guilty either way, but it's quite exhausting with young kids and football. And so sometimes I've cut corners of my own fitness and my own health in that way, that I'm just trying now. That my youngest will go to school in September, and I thought I need to get back on it, because you do have horror stories like we've heard.
One of the aspects of your role is communication, and obviously there's these informal and kind of formal networks that you've got, and in a club like this now, you're managing upwards, because you're managing to owners, and we'll come back to that, to a board. You're managing your own staff, your players. You've got communication with fans, media, social media. What are the structures in place, or informal or otherwise, Simon, where you feel it's necessary to communicate, and how do you go about that?
Oh, tough one, because you're always trying to improve it and not seem mundane or monotonous. I mean, we've got good communication with the players, because we all report in the same building. But
so
we're at the end
on a
of
daily basis.
Yeah, but we're at the end of it just as we are now, and we'll put the partition wall, scroll it across,
right?
But not fully most of the time, unless it's a personal 1v1 meeting.
Yeah.
But I still think, as much as we're all in it together. But I think in my head, they still need to know that it's still a little walk.
Well, you're the boss.
Yeah, and there's got to be that line that, because if not, they could just go out and train and play. And did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Do you think I'm good? And all these opinions.
Yeah.
When actually, I do pick the team. And I've got to make my mind up. So there's got to be a little separation. I do care for them. But
staying with that a minute then, vital part of communications, feedback. How much do you encourage and welcome feedback to you, whether it's from players or from other sources?
Oh yes, I think it's how you feedback, how you communicate.
Okay.
If it's a shouted match in the changing room, I don't expect that, and that would disappoint me. And there's got to be a point where you might disagree with me, but where there's a level of respect where you don't go again now.
Oh, I don't disagree at all.
Yeah, it's cut-off point.
I think there's inevitably an emotional period after the match where players are well versed in sort of ripping each other apart.
Yeah.
But as long as that's in the moment,
That's in the moment.
and then it passes, and
yeah, because rarely I'll come in.
Makes good.
I don't come in at half time and speak straight away. The first 5 minutes, because I've had players before.
Yeah.
Where one in particular, if you went charging in, he's got the
Red
eyes
mist.
where he'll just lose it.
Yeah.
So right, get his heartbeat down. He's like a little kid, and he's listening. But I think it's got to be try and be controlled, you know, and just be calmer, because we've got a bunch that care.
And you've got a lot of young players.
Yeah.
And increasingly that's the case, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because of the level you're playing at and the setup in terms of contracts, etc. Do you feel a wider responsibility to communicate outside of just that player group now then?
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Right.
I think because we're trying to grow a club, aren't we? You're trying to grow a fan base, trying to have something authentic. We've got something authentic, but the challenge is, right, we've gone up in terms of the attendance figures, but to really go again as a club, you can't stand still. You've got, how do we connect both emotionally and brand-wise beyond the demographics around here? You know?
100% agree with you, because fan engagement is not just about you winning on the pitch or losing on the pitch. You know, when you've cracked it, it's when people are here and they're engaged, regardless.
Yeah.
You know, and how far down the line do you think the club are with that?
I think we've got a good lad, doing the social media. I think we've all had to be educated, even in recent months. What do we want to drill down on and focus on social media?
What are the messages?
So we've got our current group of fans that will, let's have a look what's happening. But what about, there's a lot of chimney pots in Harrogate. What about people who haven't been drawn to us? Why not? And how do we get them?
And it's not traditionally a football town.
No, and there's probably a lot of Leeds fans, probably York fans, different clubs. But how can we be unique in a nice way? And yet, the aim has always been like dynamic football, fast flowing, passing, honest people. And just stick to it. And I don't think changing the style, no matter what level, is just getting a bit better. That's on the football side. But how do we connect as people and put it out there? And to be honest, I spoke to a guy who owns chief executive of a digital marketing firm, and he said, "I'm not aware. I'm aware from having a beer with you how passionate you are about how the club is so ambitious and aspirational. I don't think you put that across. So it's a lesson for us, which is that we are not like some clubs go, we're going to get promoted in 2022, but how do you remain humble but aspirational? And we've not done it yet, but I think more along the lines of, it's important what legacy we leave. And if the legacy equals playing at higher levels, with bigger crowds, I don't think that's been big time.
There's this analogy in terms of the way a club is often run, you remember the penny farthing bikes with the big wheel and the small wheel? And the analogy runs that the small wheel is kind of your responsibility. The wheel's moving really quickly, your job is to get results. It's week in, week out, week out. The back wheel, which is the one moving more slowly, is the way in which the club is establishing its strategy, its culture, it's building its infrastructure, it's building its ground. Heading in the same direction as the small wheel. Yeah. But this is important. This is important. Yeah. And that's a real juggling act, isn't it? For a club to get right.
Think now, think the big picture.
Think now, think future.
Yeah.
And that's a real challenge.
And I think it's just vital that there's no hidden agendas, own agendas.
No egos.
No, it is about, like you said, custodian, and we're here now. We're going to be gone. But
let's touch on that, because a lot of people would be interested, I think, in the way in which the dynamic works in terms of ownership, because I think it's obviously very well known that it's your dad. Yeah. And I would have thought that there are advantages to that, as well as some real sort of challenges, to be honest. How does that play out, and how do you deal with any of the noise that perhaps comes with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, you expect it to lose 3 games and that you'll hear the shouts. Yeah. But I think because we've got a really good relationship, it's given the club an opportunity to be stable. Yeah. Which, when you think of players when they're signing for us, and they've been on the journey so far,
Yeah.
they know it's not going to be trigger happy and bang, he's gone.
Yeah.
You know, because of the family bond, but because of the desire to get it right when it's wrong. We made mistakes. We both made mistakes, but I think we're both capable of going, right, made a mistake, am I going to continue to do that, or what will it take for us to win? You know, what for us all to win in it together?
But isn't the real benefit stability?
Stability is number one.
Because where does that exist in professional football?
I know. And I just think then it's helped in my mind to go, right, I can go all out on ethos, you know.
Yeah.
And
because
values.
I've got the backing.
Yeah, I've got the backing, and no one's going to go over my head to the chairman.
Yeah.
Because he's going to go, why, you know, you can't do that. And I've heard of moments like that happening
in other clubs.
Yeah.
Oh, it happens.
Yeah.
And do you think there's a real benefit in the fact that your dad has been a leader in his own field and understands the responsibilities as well?
Definitely, I've learned so much from him, just in his behaviours and the not saying something but then having coming out with a nugget of advice where you know, that's good. And doing the 1v1s, I've seen him in action where totally straight guy, a nice guy, but this means a lot to me.
Yeah.
You know, and he's got that aura about him. I think, yeah, you're sending that message over loud and clear without effing and blinding.
Yeah.
But it's serious, it's going to the root of it here.
Yeah, so when he speaks, people listen.
And there's nothing underhand. There'll never be anything underhand. He doesn't believe it. You know, in football sometimes they take, no. We're clean. You know, it's bang, moral. Yeah.
And it's a dilemma, isn't it? Not dilemma, it's the wrong word, but it's an unusual set of circumstances because as we both know, football has traditionally been rife with jobs for the boys, nepotism, etc., for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Now, my view is there's nothing wrong with jobs for the boys if they're the right boys.
They've got to be doing it. Yeah.
They've got to be doing it.
And that's where the pressure is on.
Yeah, because if you don't do the job, then
It's
presumably
untenable.
your dad is not the kind of guy who's
No.
going to live with that, is he?
No, and neither am I the kind of guy that
He'd want to.
Yeah, it's okay. We just lost, 8 out of 8. We're getting smashed 6-0. And, it's untenable. But what we've got to try and do is think club all the time and go, well, if it's a viable proposition at that point, you know, I mean, to go someone else to come in or someone, chairman to come in, because it's working. Yeah. The way it was, there's no way it was just putting money into a team. Who would look at facilities? Who would be tempted?
Yeah.
And that's where we've got to take it to that point.
And one of the big challenges with any organisation is managing the growth.
Yeah.
You know, you look around this ground now compared to a couple of years ago even, and obviously the preparations that have been put in place are for the future. But that's a difficult challenge, isn't it? Because, you know, you're having to invest now for something that's not necessarily going to happen for necessarily a few years. Who knows?
Well, it's... Yeah, 100%. My dad was 70, he's a young 70, but he said, you know, I'm putting plans in place. I hope I see him, you know, and he's just very real, my dad. You know, and that's why I suppose he wants the success that he's just living for the highs of it. But he's been through recessions in the building industry, and he's prepared to still scrap and got the energy for it. But it is about preparation and organisation, gives you that platform to...
Reminds me of that saying, isn't it, about the society knows it's moving in the right direction when old men plant trees under which shade they'll never sit. And your dad's kind of, I'm not saying it's that extreme, but your dad's putting things in place here that he might not ever see the benefit of, because who knows? Who knows? Might be 20, 30 years down the line.
Well, this is it. But I think that's how you keep memories alive, and it's the legacies
goes doing the right
back to
thing.
that. Yeah.
Could we come back just to sort of wrap up towards the end? A couple of things I want to touch on. One is recruitment, talent ID, player pathway, that kind of thing. Ongoing challenge at the professional level is always this thing between make a player or buy a player. I would imagine at the level that you guys play, buying a player is the most important thing, because although you're trying to develop your academy and your player development centres, etc., You know, that literally is stuff
Very
that's going to
tough,
take
yeah.
years and years,
Yeah.
even if you ever do get it right. It's such a challenge.
Yeah.
How much influence over talent identification, recruitment do you have? How does that work?
Well, we've got a chief scout, my assistant manager, and myself. We identify early on where we think that needs strengthening. And you have people under contract for 1 year, 2 year, occasionally 3 years. So you know what's going to be flagged up, and you know where you reflect at the end of the season, but you know where it's heading in terms of the pure stats of the season, and you get a feel for it.
Yeah.
At the minute, a lot of it's on feel and meeting people and getting the chemistry right and thinking he'll be a good fit in our team.
Do you have the final say?
Always, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because it's at the end of the day, my head's on the block. If I get the recruitment wrong, that's my job. You know, that's my fault.
And how much of that feel that you talk about, Simon, is based on a player's character as much as a player's ability?
Oh, huge.
So great player, but pain in the arse.
Yeah, not having it.
Not
No, I've had meetings before, and you shake hands, and we'll be in touch, or be in touch with the agent, be in touch with you, and then there's a niggle. If there's a niggle, you follow it. I've slept on it, and then why am I pausing? Well, I'm pausing not because the stats of the play, which are good. I'm pausing because I can't visualise him being a success in terms of his character within our group.
And how are you competing there, say, alongside, I know Orient and Salford have gone out, but you've still got some big hitters in this league, haven't you? How do you what's the advantage, the competitive advantage that makes a player think, I'll come to Harrogate Town?
I think because players, anyway, we talked about fans probably need to be aware how hungry we are, but I think players know it's a stable club and aspirational and progressive because of where we've been. And the last 2 years, people are more aware because we've outscored teams at both levels, highest scorers both seasons. People have seen us knocking goals in. They've seen our kit. We changed the kit. When Brighter yellow went Borussia Dortmund yellow. The brand, the badge was changed.
Do you think they get a sense of the values and the kind of culture that we touched upon?
Well, you'd like to think after 10 years that there'd be a consistent word of mouth.
Yeah.
That
it's a good place to come.
The consistent message. We don't like to mess about too much with tactics. But I've got a gambler in me when I think we're maxed out. At the end of the season, I changed it just because I thought it's a roll of the dice. Because I go on my feelings. I think we were sleepwalking into a disappointment. So we had to just we do that just to freshen it up. So I suppose you have to adapt to scenarios, but I think largely it's a consistent theme of fairness and of attractive football.
And in brass tacks terms, how important is money in that scenario when you're trying to bring players in?
Yeah, you've got to be competitive.
Right.
But then, and you don't want a massive difference in the top wage and the bottom wage.
Yeah.
It's largely a pack with us.
Yeah. But it's becoming increasingly more difficult to manage because the resources that other clubs have had or have available to them.
But we've got a small squad, so I
Yeah.
prefer to pay a bit more than we did and have a small squad. I think we've got 17 outfield players reporting back.
Right.
Teams will have 30.
Right.
But then how do they have that self-worth
Yeah.
if they're stuck in the stand every weekend or loaned out? We've got it really tight so everyone thinks they've got a fighting chance.
Yeah.
And in my head, it's not peaked yet, so it's going to be very competitive. But I think that enables me to go, we're doing all right with the budget.
Right. To finish up, what would you say you need to do better as a leader? I mean, do you get time to self-reflect on that kind of stuff and focus on it?
Yeah, I think continual reflection.
Right.
Just going home and thinking about it. And it's not just work solidly, head down, and then you sat on the beach and go, right, how could I have done that better?
So it's a continual process of of evaluation and improvement.
Yeah, and I call
But
that
what would you focus on then? I know it's a hard question, but from a personal perspective, what do you feel that you might be able to improve?
Just be more succinct. I've been working on that. With a message out and
because players don't listen to a lot of noise, do they?
No. I think less is more with that. I think enthusiasm can sometimes overspill, so you're talking for 15 minutes. It's not good. Being not afraid to probably open up a bit more other times.
Yeah.
Because you can go, invite them in, and it's good to show a bit of vulnerability sometimes.
Yeah, okay.
Not just straight after a game when the camera's on, but one-to-one. Let people in a bit better, because probably at times I've been a bit of a closed book, because maybe the environments I've been in, maybe my own self are just that way.
There's a tendency sometimes, I think, to protect yourself, isn't there? And that's what you think it is about.
Going back to the culture where I was brought up in, you can't show a sign of weakness.
No.
You strap that ankle up your back. Don't you be soft. Well, not soft.
Absolutely.
Ran on 2 broken legs for 3 weeks.
And that culture's still out there.
Yeah, it is.
It's still out there.
It is. And you don't want it to go the other way where, I think I need a rubber knee. But it's listening. It's listening, and hopefully striking up good relationships where they go, I'm not going to walk all over them because I'm comfortable and abuse it. But I respect the fact that he's had that struggle.
How critical do you think you are to the club's success?
I think we've got an environment now where it's set up. This is the way we are.
Right.
I mean, you said that in the first instance about good cultures that exist when the manager's not there. Well, it should do. So I don't think so. I think
that's an interesting answer, because I had the pleasure of talking to Brian Marwood at Man City.
Oh, right, yeah.
I think it was last year. And one of the things he said at the time was, when, first of all, there's an ongoing process to look for Pep Guardiola's successor. There are no plans, but there's a process.
Yeah.
And what he said was, whoever that person is going to be, things won't change. The club's culture, the values, what drives us forward will be exactly the same. And the head coach's job will be to come in and make that work.
Yeah.
And are you saying that at this level, that same sort of feeling applies?
That's what we want. And I think the stability enables us to do that. This is a set of values, this is a style.
Yeah.
This is what we look for in recruitment. And because we've had some kind of success the last couple of years, it then gets going, doesn't it? The momentum, and we go, well, that works, and why change it?
I also would have thought that for you, because of the relationship that you have in terms of ownership and your own personal ambition, presumably, I think it'd be honest enough that anybody would think that Harrogate Town's not necessarily going to be your future forever.
Yeah.
So if you then wanted to move on, presumably you'd want that feeling of the legacy being in place for somebody else just to slot into.
Yeah, if we kept it on going on down this path and it was a success, you'd like to think anyway, you won't want that feeling that it's overbearing, people, what you're doing with our club that was. You've got to be able to say goodbye.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you hate a lot of hard work and for the ethos of the club to change.
Yeah.
And it can in football.
Yeah.
And I think that's got to be careful.
I really don't like those where do you see yourself in 5 years questions, but from your own perspective, if you had ideal circumstances, what does 2 years down the line look like?
I'll be in League One with Harrogate Town.
Yeah. 2 promotions.
2 promotions, yeah. And that's what I've got in my mind, 100%. Because I know, I can feel it, I can see it, and I think we're geared up to do well, and I really believe that without screaming about it and saying we are going to do it, but I have a feeling we will, because I think we're nicely in a good place.